What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to have a little bit of a chat about something a little bit different. You see, the lovely folks over at Fantasy Flight Games have gone and published the Keyforge floor rules, although to be fair, they are actually the Fantasy Flight floor rules, i.e. they apply for all of their games. And I thought, you know what? We need to have a little bit of a chat about them. Make sure you don't get yourself into trouble. Now, the first thing to point out is that there are differences between casual tier and competitive tier games. Casual tier, everyone comes along, you're improving, you're learning. Everybody knows that in a casual tier, there's going to be more chatting. You might help each other a little bit. This is fine. If you're playing in a casual event and your opponent's friend comes over and gives them some advice on what move to make, it's fine. In a competitive tier event, well, that's a little bit different. They expect you to have a moderate to expert amount of knowledge and experience with the game, that being the rules document, but also tournament regulations, etc. So again, in a competitive tier, we expect you to, I say we like I run FFG, I most certainly do not, but you are expected to know about the game, know the rules, and to follow them. Yeah, people are going to be people are going to be on you a bit more. Now, in terms of a judge, there is a note here about judges. What I like here, essentially, they are mediators and conflict resolvers. They are impartial and objective, no matter what situations may arise. Basically, judges are your friends, they're here to do what they're supposed to do, and they are not supposed to favour one player or another. One thing I really like here, sometimes the players of a game may realise they've made a mistake and attempt to fix it themselves. If a judge sees this happening, they should watch and only step in if the players do not resolve the situation correctly. I very, very much like that one. That seems pretty good to me. Now, before we get into the kind of infractions, we need to have a look at the penalties and what actually you can get. So a normal warning is worth 1 penalty point. Cool. A hard warning is worth 2 penalty points. These are for either more serious things or repeated things. And a severe warning, when a player causes a significant event disruption that does not quite warrant a disqualification, such as aggressive behaviour or spouting unnecessary profanities, 4 penalty points. Now, the points do add up. If you accumulate too many points, you will be disqualified. That is 5 at a competitive event and 7 at a casual event. Lovely. Although anyone that goes to a casual event and starts kind of harassing people or cheating, it's a casual event, there are no prizes, they're all there to have fun. I would say, chill out a little bit. Now, beyond warnings, it can get a little bit more. You can get a game or a match loss. So, for example, if you've got a best of 3, you can lose a game without actually losing a match. You can lose one game and then we go to game 2, or if relevant, game 3. Now, there is also disqualification. If you receive 5 or more penalty points, you can be disqualified. Obviously, you can also be disqualified just straight away, if need be. If you are disqualified, it does actually have to be reported to FFG, and obviously this could affect, well, you could end up being suspended from future tournaments. I have absolutely no problem with this, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely no problem. Now, one thing I do find very interesting here, if a tournament organiser is aware of a player who has demonstrated a tendency to cause disruptions, the tournament organiser should alert the judges before the start of the event. Organised play events should operate under the assumption that all players are given the benefit of the doubt, but patterned behaviour should not be ignored. If the player in question begins to disrupt the event, the leaders are encouraged to respond to whatever penalties they deem appropriate. I.e., if you're a continued troublemaker, we're not going to assume, again, I do not work for FFG, I should stop saying we. They are not going to assume that you are a troublemaker, but if you start causing trouble, that is going to be borne in mind. There we go. So we need to have a look at gameplay disruptions and warning guidelines. And the good news is we do actually have a handy little table. Now, we also have a couple things to get to before that. Generally speaking, we're going to be either playing on, resolving now, or rewinding. So the play-on solution then, both players acknowledge a mistake, the judge determines that neither player was given a notable advantage, you crack on. Resolve now is where the overlooked rule or ability in question can still be retroactively applied without giving a major advantage. I'll give you one example, and now again, I'm not a certified judge, but let's say for argument's sake, one player has a mother out and drew till 6 cards in hand at the end of their turn rather than the 7 they should have. If during the other player's turn, when the other player has done nothing to interact with his opponent's hand, they realise, oh, well, just resolve it now. You should have 7 cards in hand. You don't. Draw an extra card. Now, obviously, if the other player has played something that disregards a random card from the hand, for instance, that would be a little different. The rewind solution is used when neither of the other 2 solutions cannot be used without giving one player a significant advantage over the other, and essentially what you do is you back up the game to when the mistake was made or wherever else is appropriate. That should be okay. Obviously, sometimes it's just not possible. If it cannot be rewound, the players must simply play on. Fair dues. So with that borne in mind, let's have a little bit of a look at the table and what kind of warnings are going to be given. A minor gameplay error, simple, honest mistake made during the game. Maybe not using an ability, for instance. It only takes a judge a minute or 2 to identify and correct. No warning. Everybody's fine. If they keep making mistakes, it goes on. Intermediate gameplay error, a larger gameplay mistake or multiple smaller mistakes, takes a judge a decent amount of time to correct the error, possibly necessitating a time extension, then you're going to get a normal warning. Now, the time extension should be the same amount of time it took for the judge to correct the error, up to 5 minutes. If it takes longer than 5 minutes to correct, it's going to be a significant gameplay error, which gives you a hard warning. This is a significant, possibly longer-lasting gameplay mistake or several larger mistakes, taking a judge a significant amount of time to correct the error, if they can at all. If the integrity of the game has been irrevocably compromised, then the judge may want to give a game or match loss, i.e. one player has continued drawing extra cards for several turns in a way that you just cannot rewind. Now, those are gameplay disruptions, but there are also event disruptions. It's not what you're doing when you're playing, it's what you're doing outside of playing that's actually going to come in and hurt you here. So, tardiness, a player is late to their match without notifying a judge beforehand, you get a normal warning. Late is generally 1 to 5 minutes late. Absence, you do not show up within a reasonable time for the match. This is more than 5 minutes late for card games. You're going to get yourself a match loss. You carry on in the event, but yeah, you're going to get yourself a match loss there. A deck list error. So, this is something along the lines... Now, for Keyforge, it's not quite as easy, frankly. So, there is another table here we can look at. You know, the deck and list are legal, but they do not match each other. For Keyforge, this shouldn't be an issue. But this is, for instance, if you took the wrong Archon card. You took the Archon deck from another card, or you forgot to put a card into your deck, so you're playing with a 35 card deck, or you accidentally have a card from the wrong deck in there, then essentially what you do is correct it, but you may end up getting a game or match loss in the meantime. If you end up with this, it could be, we found it before the first round of the tournament, you're fine. If it's discovered during a game, it's going to be a bit worse. Marked cards are going to give you a normal warning. Do be careful with Keyforge, of course, because you can't replace cards. If you mark them, then you've got an illegal deck. Drawing extra cards, you're going to get yourself a normal warning. This, of course, is distinct from not drawing enough cards. Now, if we know what the extra cards were, it's nice and easy, we shuffle them in. If we don't know what the extra cards drawn were, then the opponent may choose a card from their hand to shuffle back into the deck. Some games it's random. Here, the opponent chooses. And that's right, I like this, because if a random card is shuffled back in, then the player who drew extra cards could end up getting an advantage from drawing the extra card. I mean, if they had a terrible hand and then drew a too much to protect to stop their opponent forging a key the following turn, that is a huge advantage, so letting the opponent choose the too much to protect gotta be the right way to go. Slow play is where you unintentionally take more time than is necessary to perform a game action. You'll be giving a normal warning after the second instance. First time you do it, speed up, no penalty is necessary. Obviously, the more often you slow play, the more this is going to escalate. Now, this is unintentional. Intentional stalling is a form of cheating and will be punished as such. Minor behavioural infractions, a player acts in a way that causes a bit of tension or awkwardness among their table and neighbours, but it blows over after a relatively short while with relatively little judge intervention. Normal warning. Now this is awkward because this is going to be on a case-by-case basis. It might be a minor incident, but causes a larger disruption to the event overall. Maybe it ends up getting escalated into a hard warning. Again, this is really awkward to try and figure out, but this could be, and there were some examples given, it could be something like vulgar language. Inappropriately demands that a judge issue a penalty. It could be an insult. Failing to follow what the judge says. Leaving excessive trash at the table. Stomping around, throwing their deck onto the ground. Performing frustrated outbursts after losing a game. If it's too aggressive, it gets escalated up. Celebrating a victory loudly and excessively beyond what could be deemed appropriate, or is rude and condescending towards a person they defeated. Look, if you go and win yourself a Vault Tour, or you win a Grand Championship and get yourself an invite to Worlds, you are going to celebrate probably quite feverishly. And that's fine. If you do that round one at a chain-bound event, it's not quite the same thing. Or wearing offensive clothing or offensive images, for instance, on their playmat. Yes, you might like your playmat, but it could still end up offending people. We then get into an intermediate behavioural infraction which gets to a hard warning. And there is a very small window between minor and significant ones. And it really is up to the TO to figure out where this falls. And then a significant behavioural infraction. This sours the experience for a large number of attendees, necessitates a significant amount of judge intervention, or blatantly ruins the event for one or more people. This is going to give you a match loss or a disqualification. And this is absolutely appropriate. If you're doing anything that's making somebody feel uncomfortable, and there is a note in the floor rules here that it might be unintentional. I know, right? But it is. It is possible for a misunderstanding to cause a person to feel harassed. They may make a comment or act in a way that offends or disturbs another person without meaning to. If they didn't mean to and they're genuinely apologetic, it could be downgraded to a hard warning at their discretion, but if they do it again, they're out. Immediate disqualification. All seems perfectly fair to me. Obviously, repeated infractions get upgraded a little bit. Cheating and too many penalty points lead you to disqualification. Unfortunately, cheating is very, very bad, ladies and gentlemen. You know, it should be fairly obvious. Now, there are a couple of other examples which aren't in the table, but are mentioned in the floor rules. Bribery and collusion, obviously, is going to get you disqualified. Simple as that. Bribery or collusion is basically gaining an advantage or getting something by offering something in return. I will give you some money to let me win this Vault Tour final. That's bribery. Collusion is where two people collude. I'll let you win because blah, 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 blah. Artificially or randomly determining the result of a game. Similarly, we've got stalling. This is where you intentionally slow play. Hard warning, game loss, or disqualification, depending on how bad it is. It not only sours the experience, but it can throw off the timing and integrity of the tournament as a whole. Aggressive behaviour, obviously a disqualification. Should be fairly obvious. Yelling, bringing a weapon, threatening to bring one, moving to strike, pulling a chair out from somebody, causing them to fall to the ground. And then obviously vandalism and theft, obviously a disqualification. Most of these rules are fairly straightforward, but if you go into a Keyforge event, you should know them. So the point of this video was to generally go through the kind of penalties you can get and how you go about getting them. Hopefully we're all now a little bit better informed so we can move forward, making sure we don't do a silly. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions, comments, queries, quibbles you've got about these, chuck them in the comment section, and I'm sure myself or somebody else will go and get to them. For now, I would request that you go nuts while asking you to be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, and do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio. There's some cool stuff on there. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross and you've been watching Wossy Plays.